my first race, my first marathon was the New York Marathon, and I was 5 miles in, full of adrenaline, having the greatest time of my life, with thousands of people running down either side of me, smiling from ear to ear. I didn't feel any pain, I was enjoying myself, and I got swept up and carried away, and I didn't check my blood sugars. When I did check my blood sugars after about an hour, they were below the safe level of 4, and I was in hypoglycemia. Luckily, I had enough fuel to get myself around, and I ran down in front of thousands of people with a bottle of honey in my hand, squeezing it into my mouth as I was running down in front of thousands of people to get my sugars back up and be able to finish the race. So it's always manageable, but it does make you have some pretty interesting experiences.
Make a life for myself.
I'm Will, I'm 24 years old, and I got into running about 8 years ago. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and exercise is very important as a way of treating the disease to kind of help you be more healthy and make your medication more effective in its impact on your life. So I began running when I was 18, so 6 years ago now. I joined up to a half marathon with a friend and we gave it a go. We were playing football, and it was a local half marathon down in Exeter, and it was a great West run. It was really good fun, trained for it, really enjoyed it, and had a great time on the day. And I'd never been around so many people that were working towards the same goal. With team sports, obviously you've got 11 people trying to push in the same direction, but to be amongst thousands of people running and trying to get over the finish line, for me, was quite a profound experience. From that day, I thought, I want to do it again, and so I did another half marathon, and we did Swansea half marathon. I took part in an unofficial world record for the most amount of type 1 diabetics to run an event, and we had over 100 people there running, which is incredible to get a community of people together. And community is a word that I would focus on most with running. You really get around people that are all pushing in the same direction to better themselves every day, and that's why I love running, and that's why I love to share the message of getting people out there to run. So I've got a YouTube channel called Miles and Insulin. It does exactly what it says on the tin, really. It just highlights to people through my training vlogs and just through opening up a bit more about my experiences with diabetes, about how people can do their running or put themselves through a massive training block, but also how that affects my diabetes, what I'm doing, what I'm eating, and also kind of just trying to stir up some inspiration. There was a massive lack of videos or channels for diabetics to aspire to, and so I'm just trying to shed some light on what it means to be a diabetic and how running can affect that. The condition is invisible, so most people wouldn't know unless you tell them that you're type 1 diabetic, and it's also very important to let people know that because you can have some difficulties there. If you're healthy, running is great to make you healthier, yeah. As a diabetic, you take insulin to mediate your diabetes. If you exercise, it makes the insulin or the medication more effective because your body is more receptive to that insulin. So using any form of movement is also like making your medication more effective, and therefore over time you become more and more healthy. So in simpler terms, running and insulin, good control, makes your diabetes more controlled. And that's the whole point about diabetes, you have to have control. And so working with running as a medication, so it makes you have a better life. And that's the most important thing. with running events around the world now, you might notice these little patches on people's arms. These are glucose monitoring systems, which sit underneath the skin and allow people to monitor glucose. So with diabetics, their glucose in their blood can go up and can go low, which can cause them to go into danger. So what you have to do as a diabetic is to manage that and monitor it. And so around running, you have to be careful what you eat, and you have to be careful how much you exercise, because if you eat too much, your sugars can go too high, and if you exercise too much, your sugars can go low. So with the management, it's all about managing your food beforehand, making sure that you fueled yourself well, as every runner has to anyway. But it's as if you're playing a game as a diabetic, the level is on advanced or expert level of hardness, because if you make a mistake as a diabetic, my body cannot deal with the consequences of being underfueled, having too little food. So I'm trying to collect the 6 Abbott majors, or the majors of Abbott, and I've managed to run New York and Berlin so far. So it's quite an investment to try and get all the way out there, and the expenses of the races are incredible, but they are the biggest marathons and they're the best marathons in the world. So I've done 2 so far. I'm going to try and knock a few off as I go over the next 5 years. The next goal for me is Brighton Marathon. I will be running that in 2 weeks' time now, so I have managed to get past this huge 2-month training block, which has been hefty. I'm now on my taper, which is very enjoyable as the miles start to calm down and my body starts to heal, and I'm feeling ready for it. I'm very excited. It was a home marathon. I've supported it for 2 years, but I've never ran it, so I'm very excited. I've got a lot of our Phoenix friends and colleagues are all running it, so it's going to be a great race. I'm very excited to do it, and I'm really hoping to put on a good performance. The training at the track has been really beneficial to my speed work, so I'm going to be aiming for a PB there, so I'll be going for a sub 3 hour 10. So really punchy numbers, and for someone who's quite bulky and quite short, it's very, very fast for me. So I'm very excited to put on a good performance and get out there. I'm also running Manchester Marathon 2 weeks after that, so I'm really interested to see how my body recovers in those 2 weeks, to see whether I can go straight onto the second marathon. I'm supporting 2 or 3 friends that are running that, and I'm running as a pacer for that. So I'll be running at a little bit slower pace and driving my friends across the finish line, which is really exciting as well. I think I would like people to understand that as a diabetic, it's not impossible to do anything. It just makes it harder. And so for people to have an appreciation of of how hard it is to even get to the start line, it's not about just how was your fueling. It could be that my blood sugars were poor overnight and I didn't get a good sleep, or it could be that 2 or 3 days before that I had poor sugars, which could affect my mental health for the next few days. There's so many different things which I'm not expecting everyone to understand, but to understand as a whole as a diabetic, every single day is a struggle, every single day is difficult. And when I see someone else who's type 1 diabetic, I will always say to them, you're doing a really great job, because the average person on the street doesn't understand how taxing on your mental capacity it is to be diabetic all the time. You have to be so alert and so aware of what you're doing, and how much it takes to just wake up every day and take on the challenge of being part of society. My main goal is just to push the boundaries of what people think type 1 diabetics can do, and I've met some really, really incredible athletes over my life that are type 1 diabetic, and they just inspire me to keep pushing what people think type 1 diabetics can do.